Thousands mobilized across the Americas to denounce the serious situation that Haiti is experiencing and to reject a possible foreign military intervention. In China, the first high-level conference of the Forum on Global Action for Shared Development opened in Beijing. And in Sudan, the Civil Aviation Authority extends the closure of the country's airspace due to the worsening security situation. Egypt called for a regional meeting to address the ongoing conflict. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Thousands of Haitians and citizens of other nationalities mobilized in several cities of America to denounce the serious situation in that Caribbean nation and reject a possible foreign intervention. In various cities of the United States, Brazil, and Canada, Haitian and national citizens dressed in white carrying flags and posters, like the Secretary of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, the possibility of sending a multinational force. The protesters consider this another violation of the sovereignty of Haiti. The Institution of Revolutionary Parties, National Action, and One of the Democratic Revolution formalized this Sunday the Broad Front for Mexico before the National Electoral Institute. They assured that it is a process that complies with the law in reference to the surveys carried out by the ruling party. The references of the parties highlighted that not only the three political groups are made of it, but it is involved of more than 100 civil organizations. Class the initiative as an unprecedented fact where for the first time they admit they will listen to civil society to choose the formula with which they want to associate to build the widest opposition front. On Saturday morning, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador toured the first car of the Mayan train to arrive to Cancun in the southeast part of the country. Thus, the president gave the symbolic starting signal to one of the most important mega projects of his administration. On his inspection tour, the president was accompanied by Quintana Roo Governor Mara Lezama and Alstom Mexico Director Maite Ramos. Alstom is the local subsidiary of the French company building the trains. Obrador praised the work of laborers, technicians, and Mexican officials involved in this project. The president said that from now until September, they will be conducting trial runs. On Saturday in Peru, the government declared a health emergency due to a rise in the number of reported cases of the Guillain-Barré syndrome. The Health Ministry, along with the National Institute of Health, have explained that the emergency will last 90 days for them to conduct a comprehensive epidemiological surveillance, to do research, and to try to control the number of cases. During that time, they'll also be providing technical assistance and monitoring. The departments reporting the highest number of cases this year have been Lima, La Libertad, and Cajamarca, among others. The Guillain-Barré syndrome is a disorder that affects the immune system, causes damage to neurons that result in muscle weakness, and in some cases paralysis. In northeastern Brazil, at least 11 people have died and several are missing following the collapse of an illegal occupied building on Friday in the municipality of Pernambuco. Firefighters are still searching for a woman and two children under the rubble. The dead include men, women, and children aged 5 to 45. According to a statement released Saturday by the Pernambuco Civil Defense Services, the three-story structure attached to a larger housing complex had been closed since 2010 due to a risk of collapse, but had been illegally occupied since then. Building collapses in Brazil generally happen in poor neighborhoods where illegal construction is rampant. In Argentina, the government of Alberto Fernandez inaugurates on Sunday the Néstor Kirchner gas pipeline coinciding with the nation's Independence Day. The ceremony takes place in the city of Salliqueló in Buenos Aires, and President Fernandez, Vice President Cristina Fernandez, and the Minister of Economy and presidential pre-candidate of the ruling party, Sergio Massa, attended the gas pipeline opening. Prior, President Fernandez stated, "This is the largest gas transportation project in the last 40 years. The first section of the Néstor Kirchner gas pipeline extends 573 kilometers and will transport gas from the Vaca Muerta field, considered the second largest unconventional gas reservoir in the world. Fernandez pointed out that the launching of the first section will create more than 48,000 direct or indirect jobs. In Uruguay, the water crisis accentuates social inequalities in access to drinking water. Inhabitants of poor areas drink from the pipes, while those who can buy bottled water buy them. The government has acknowledged that the water in Montevideo network and surrounding areas contains unsafe limits of sodium and chlorine due to the influx of the water from the La Plata River. The samples tested show levels of up to 873 milligrams of chlorine per liter of water and up to 516 milligrams of sodium, which is above the 720 and 540 milligrams, respectively, that are considered safe. The government announced a subsidy for people in poor neighborhoods in Montevideo of some 800 pesos to buy water, but people say they'd rather use that money to buy food. Meanwhile, water trucks are supplying well-to-do neighborhoods. On Saturday in Canada, members of the Sikh community demonstrated outside the Indian consulate in Toronto to protest the murder of one of their leaders last month. Demonstrators accused the Indian government of being responsible for the shooting death of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, president of a Sikh temple and advocate of the creation of an independent Sikh state that his supporters hope to call Khalistan. Government of India had declared Nijjar a terrorist and claimed that in a search and seizure operation, he was gunned down on June 18th in Surrey, Vancouver suburb that is home to one of Canada's largest Sikh populations. Nijjar advocated the creation of an independent Sikh state that would be divided between parts of northern India and perhaps parts of Pakistan. Government of India accused Nijjar of carrying out terrorist attacks, an accusation he denied.
India has systematically been committing violence against Sikhs since the early 80s up until now. So they've been committing violence. The policy remains the same. They want to oppress the minorities.
We are very much concerned because what we feel that such kind of activities damages the India and Canada relationship, and we don't want that to happen. We want a very strong India and Canada relationship.
Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. On Sunday, the government of Volodymyr Zelensky admitted for the first time its responsibility for the attack on the Kerch Bridge that connects the Crimea with the Russian mainland. The aggression, described by the Russian authorities as a terrorist attack, has not been directly admitted by the government of President Volodymyr Zelensky. However, within the framework of the 500th day of the armed conflict, the Vice Minister of the Ukrainian Defense, Anna Maliar, included the aggression as one of the victories won by the Ukrainian military forces. On October 8, 2022, a truck exploded on the bridge. In addition to the attack, 4 civilians lost their lives. The Russian Defense Minister's part, the head of the region, Sergei Aksyonov, confirmed that it was a cruise missile. The attack on the coastal town of Kerch left no casualties, no injuries, and no material damage. The civil organizations of the region reproach that Kiev goes around the world assuring that it wants to regain the territory, but it does not cease its destructive efforts against the province, claiming that many of them are aimed at hitting the civilian inhabitants. Early presidential elections in Uzbekistan concluded on Sunday following a constitutional amendment extending the term of office to 7 years. The Central Electoral Commission stated that 3 hours before closing polling station, the voter participation was 69.85%, surpassing the threshold of participation to recognize the elections as valid, which is 33%. Some 800 observers representing several dozen states and international organizations accredited for these elections. For any of the candidates to be the winner, they must obtain more than 50% of the votes. Early voting was held from June 28th to July 5th for those who could not be at their place of residence on election day. According to the Central Election Commission of Uzbekistan, around 20 million Uzbeks were eligible to vote. In France, authorities have banned the sale of fireworks during national holidays in the context of protests over the police violence. The country's Prime Minister, Elizabeth Borne, decreed a ban on carrying, selling, transporting, and using any pyrotechnics and announced an implementation of security measures to ensure the welfare and protection of civilians. The decree, which is now in effect, does not apply to professionals organizing fireworks shows for the holiday. The government justified the decree, saying people demonstrated against police violence used fireworks during their clashes with police. On Sunday at the Vatican, Pope Francis announced that he will elevate 21 ecclesiastics to the high rank of cardinals. The investiture ceremony, known as consistory, will be held on September 30th. Francis declared during his midday prayer to pilgrims and tourists in St. Peter's Square. 18 of the ecclesiastics are under the age of 80 and could enter an eventual conclave to elect the next pope. The other 3, who are over 80, were appointed in gratitude for their long service to the Church. The new cardinals come from countries such as the United States, Italy, Argentina, South Africa, Spain, Colombia, South Sudan, Hong Kong, Poland, Malaysia, Tanzania, and Portugal. 3 of the new cardinals have recently been appointed heads of important Vatican departments, including Argentine Archbishop Victor Manuel Fernandez, head of the Vatican's doctrinal department.
Now I would like to announce that on September 30, I will hold a consistory for the appointment of new cardinals. Their provenance expresses the universality of the Church, which continues to proclaim the merciful love of God to all people on earth.
On Saturday, the Parliament of Greece ratified in power the Prime Minister Kyrios Mitsotakis to continue ruling after winning by absolute majority in the elections of last June 25th. The decision was reached after 3 days of debate that ratified the support of the 158 deputies of Mitsotakis' New Democracy Party out of the 300 that make up the legislature. The ruler spoke in the plenary to present his program, and among the proposals is to approve the marriage of same-sex couples and a new law that will allow all Greek citizens living abroad to participate in the political life of their country. Mitsotakis also promised that he will implement all the reforms announced during his campaign. In the meantime, the opposition deputies rejected the victory of New Democracy Party, while denouncing that it is not a victory of the social majority. German authorities confirmed 3 police fired tear gas and used water cannons to quell riots at a controversial Eritrean music festival in the city of Geysen on Saturday, during over 20 officers were injured, according to the police report. The local police stressed law enforcement officers were victims of stone throwing and added that some 100 arrests were made. For this festival located north of Frankfurt, some 1,000 police officers were deployed in the city of 80,000 inhabitants. After the 2022 edition degenerated into violence, Minister of the Interior of the Hesse region, Peter Booth, declared such an escalation of violence with targeted attacks against the order forces was totally unacceptable. Booth called on the national government to summon the Eritrean ambassador to make it clear that Eritrean disputes must not take place on German soil. The first high-level conference of the Forum on Global Action for Shared Development opened on Monday in Beijing, the capital of China. This important meeting, attended by more than 130 countries and international organizations, was inaugurated on Sunday. The day's work will analyze joint strategies to better achieve the 2023 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations Organization. The Prime Minister of the Solomon Islands, the former Secretary of the United Nations, and the Director of the Office of the Central Foreign Affairs Commission of the Communist Party of China, Wang Yi, will be present at this session, which received a letter of congratulations from Chinese President Xi Jinping. On Sunday, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen wrapped up her 4-day visit to China. She described her meetings with the local authorities as positive. At a press conference, Yellen said her meetings with Chinese officials were direct and productive. Yellen told reporters that the objective of this trip was to establish and deepen relations with the new team at Beijing, an objective she said has been achieved. On its part, China has expressed hopes that Washington may take concrete steps to facilitate prosperous bilateral trade. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English. Here you'll be able to re-watch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In Sudan, the Civil Aviation Authority extended the closure of the country's airspace due to the worsening situation and the latest advances of the Rapid Support Forces. The closure was first ordered shortly after the fighting began. Since then, there have been numerous extensions. The latest one is due to end on July 31st. Junta military commanders say the decision will facilitate attacks on rebel positions, especially those entrenched in the capital region. As the situation worsens, Egypt announced that it will host a meeting of Sudan's neighbors to discuss alternatives to the devastating conflict. Gabon's President Ali Bongo Ondimba, who has been ruling for almost 14 years, announced on Sunday that he will stand for a third term in the presidential election scheduled for August 26. Mr. Bongo is the clear favorite for the presidential election, as various opposition parties have failed to form a single coalition. The 64-year-old president of Gabon was first elected in 2009 on the death of his father, Omar Bongo Ondimba, who had ruled the country for over 41 years and was narrowly re-elected in 2016. His candidacy will have to be ratified by a special Congress scheduled on Monday of his Gabonese Democratic Party, which dominates parliament by a wide margin and is the favorite in the legislative and municipal elections to be held on the same day as the presidential election. The summit of the Economic Community of West African States got underway in Bissau, the capital of Guinea. Such regional issues like power juntas following coup d'etats is high on the agenda. The meeting was chaired by Nigerian President Bola Tinubu. The summit will focus on political developments in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea-Conakry, countries whose military leaders are committed to a democratic roadmap for an eventual transition to democracy. Another important issue to be discussed will be the withdrawal of the United Nations mission from Mali, MINUSMA. On Sunday, the President of Kenya, William Ruto, on a state visit to Congo, has announced the removal of visa restrictions. Ruto addressed a message to the Congolese parliamentarians gathered at the Congress, where he lamented the fact that Africa is a victim of climate change, despite the fact it emits only 4% of greenhouse gases. The Kenyan leader was also dismayed by the fact that the continent's low-income countries spend 24% of their GDP on debt repayment. In this sense, he announced the decision that Congolese will no longer need visas to enter Kenya. This will allow to increase trade between the two countries, their peoples, and businessmen, Ruto pointed out. 18 agreements were signed in the framework of this official visit in agriculture, livestock, environment and tourism, mining industry, and geology, diplomatic training, promotion of cooperatives, among others. At least one person has died and 15 houses have collapsed on Saturday in India as a result of the heavy rains that hit its nation's capital. The director of the fire department, Charan Singh, explained that the victim is a 50-year-old woman who lost her life when a wall collapsed at Tibia University in the Carroll Back neighborhood. Singh added that the collapse of the structure also caused damage to 15 vehicles. The Meteorological Department of India assured that the heavy rains will continue in the capital for 2 or 3 more days. Climatological event will mitigate the extreme heat wave affecting millions of citizens in the Asian nation. We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.